صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا ابن رسول الله وابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين وابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدتنا وسيدة نساء العالمين غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. The seventh night of Muharram, and this night is usually dedicated to Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And while there may be many queries regarding him and regarding his actions in Karbala or in Taf, most of us know and understand that Al-Abbas alayhi salam was one of the few people in Al-Hussein's caravan to ever reach water after it was prevented from them. So the Umayyads, when Al-Hussein salamullahi alayhi and also his family went to Karbala, as told yesterday and the day before, they surrounded them from all flanks. Of course, there is wiggle room. There are several people to come to Karbala after Al-Hussein set camp, and several people to leave. Al-Hussein actually sent several messages to Medina and other places, and he had to send them on horseback. So there was a tight grip, but that grip would be lenient if the one exiting or entering is someone that is not really important or not a very well known and courageous and strong, let's say, military man, or someone that would actually bring in water or something of the sort. So by the seventh night of Muharram, all water was cut out, and Imam al-Hussein and also his family members weren't able to get any. It is reported that this was a huge catastrophe because of the scalding heat, the unforgiving heat of the Sahara over there. And also, they were numerous in numbers. I mean, especially when it comes to women and children, they brought all that they could. And this was actually a very, very strong message to the enemies that we are not here to wage war. Otherwise, then who would take his ladies for war? So they knew that war will fall upon them, but this is a clear message that Al-Hussein would not go out and fight intentionally and wanting to, let's say, face the Umayyad dynasty and start them with war. Even when the 10th of Muharram came, some of his companions said to Al-Hussein, give us permission so that we may go to the heavens. So he said, إني أكره أن أبدأهم بقتال, or إني أكره أن أبدأ القوم بقتال, which translates into, I hate to start these people with war. And if Al-Imam al-Hussein actually did go intentionally without any woman, and to go and strictly the reason would be to fight, then his death would be in vain, and we wouldn't benefit what we benefit today from Karbala. And that is a story for another time. But returning back to Al-Abbas, there are many questions and queries regarding him. Some of them are very, very pressing and important, such as, isn't it suicide that Abu al-Fadl Abbas didn't drink from the water and he returned back? If he drank from the water, then he may have been, let's say, nourished enough to fight even some more. So what was the reason behind that? There are actually several reasons behind this, but we need first to bear in mind that not only is Al-Abbas a son of a Ma'soom, an infallible, but also his brother was a Ma'soom and an infallible, and Al-Ma'soom would never be quiet if he saw something that was very, let's say, wrong or exaggerated or something out of context. But Imam al-Hussein said nothing regarding this from Al-Abbas. Rather, he actually was giving him merit and giving him credit for what he had done. So now what are the reasons? The first and the foremost and most important maybe reason is that Al-Abbas already knew exactly when he is going to be killed. And that was foretold by his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and also by his mother-in-law, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and also by his grandfather, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this passed down to Zainab and also Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein alayhim jami'an salamullah. And you could see actually in the story of Karbala that when Al-Abbas is leaving for the final time, he is telling them that I know that this is going to be the final time that I bid you farewell. And so they cried severely, the ladies around him, the ladies of Hashim. And he spent a lot of time with Zainab alayhi salam, consoling her and telling her that now is the time. And when he was going to leave Imam al-Hussein, they actually shared a very, very, very special moment that is transcending through history till this day, showing us how true brothership should be. So now, if you know that you're going to die anyways, you may say, why wouldn't I have a sip of water so that at least I'll die comfortably? Here comes the actual consolidation part with Al-Hussein, because he knows that Al-Hussein is to be dead thirsty, as the Prophet ﷺ said in several occasions. And in one of the occasions, he was actually talking, not one, several also, but in this specific one, he was talking to Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and he was telling her that he is going to be murdered and martyred while he is thirsty, and he would fight thirsty in the heat of the desert. So if he knew that his brother will die uncomfortably, then he is not able to even fathom the idea of drinking some water. Remember when Al-Abbas alayhi salam fell to the ground, and then Al-Hussein offered to take him to the camps, and Al-Hussein kept putting the head of Abu al-Fadl Abbas on his lap, but Al-Abbas would pull himself even though he is severely wounded and exhausted to the least that we could say that he was exhausted. And exhausted is such an understatement to the state that he was in. The narrations say that his head was wide open because of the strike that was upon his head. And when Abu Fadl alayhi salam actually would throw himself on the sand, a lot of the sand, the scorching sand, will not only burn the underside of the head, but will also enter into the wound and cause him more pain and agony. But he did that several times until Imam Hussein asked him, why are you doing this? He said, because I know that there will come a time in which no one will put your head in their lap. So I can't have special treatment that you will never have. You are my superior, and I must always be the like of you when it comes to pain and suffering and sharing. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib was huge on the idea of being equal to others, to the extent that even when he ruled the Islamic world with all of its riches, he used to eat nothing but just a few bites of oatmeal bread that was very dry, that the narrations would say that he would break it with his feet and then dip it in water to just soften it enough just for it to be barely manageable by the teeth, and barely something that you could swallow. So when they asked him, why do you do this to yourself? You're now becoming an old man. And because he ruled at the end of his reign and at the end of his age, peace be upon him and his family. So he said to them, how can I fathom the idea of me eating food while my neighbor may be hungry, while there is someone under the shade of the sun that is affiliated to my country, that is feeling hungry, that is feeling thirsty. So I must always be with them. What Amir al-Mu'mineen did not disclose, however, is that he is also remembering always Karbala. And if you have the idea of your son passing through such agony, then life would have no meaning. So enjoying food and enjoying cold beverages, that was something just, not in Imam Ali's dictionary at all. So Imam Ali has taught his children how to deal in such cases, and so this was the way that Al-Abbas alayhi salam tributed to his father, and also gave consolidation to his brother and sister Zainab alayhi salam. Secondly, we always presume that when Al-Abbas went into the water, he actually had a chance to just relax and chill in the water and then leave out. And this may be predominantly because our reciters, the eulogists, the sheikhs, the mullahs, the sayyids, they all describe in huge detail what happened to Al-Abbas per the narration books. And so, because of the lengthy duration of what they narrate, you'd think that he jumped alone into the water. He didn't. Even the enemies followed him through. But he had barely the chance to just dip the piece of leather that is called Jude, or it's called Kirba, or it's called several other names. So just like a bagpipe, an emptied bagpipe, and he would dip it inside and then carry it, or if it was very heavy, like I assume the one that he was holding, because he was going to return to approximately about 90 people. So how will they all drink if it just held, for example, one or two or three or couple more gallons? So if that was the case, then what they would do is they would dip the whole horse in water and keep the sachet open, so that when they go inside, the movement of the horse will fill in the water, and when they are going out, the weight of the water will pull itself on a string and it will automatically tie itself by its own weight. And this is the more plausible thing, because they had different sizes. I mean, when we listen to the story of Musa alayhi salam, when he actually saw the daughters of Shu'aib trying to get water, but there were many men, so he volunteered. And it said in the narration that the big sachet of water, that it wasn't a bucket, but rather a piece of leather that was dropped in the well, would actually be carried comfortably by 40 men, 40. And it was made from oxen skin. So it wasn't only one piece of oxen, but rather several pieces all sewn together and then tied with heavy rope. And even the rope would go under the underbelly of the sachet, so that it would carry the weight with the leather, so that the leather is only waterproofing. It will not bear a lot of weight. It will bear minimum weight. So there were different sizes. You can have them as much as you can. And this would actually make a lot of sense, because Al-Abbas alayhi salam not only is returning for hundreds of people, but also because he dipped his whole horse into the water. So this means that he either wanted to very quickly finish the deed, or that the water sachet was too big for one to fill outside, and it would take so much time that it would be dangerous. And the danger is that he's not able to return the water then, not that he is fearful upon his own life. He has sold his soul for the pleasure of his creator and maker when he ordered them to take their fortifications at Karbala and wait until all the war is undone upon them. Plus, the people that were following Al-Abbas alayhi salam knew that even a horse would do just so much benefit inside the water. It would be heavy to move, and since it's heavy to move, then it's easy to hit, and it's easy to hit also the sachet of water. It's easy to hit Al-Abbas. He would be drowning in water, and he will be many times heavier than he was when he initially entered. So this is actually the best time to attack him. So they kept actually going into the water after him until he went out of the water, probably just circling through away from them, because it's a real disadvantage to fight in water. So even if you are a brave man, you would be a foolish man to fight in water, and he is no way foolish. And so when Al-Abbas, if he's going to enter this quick and get out, and he had one mission and one mission only, he would be focused, and he wouldn't actually really have a chance to drink a lot. He could drink, I mean, the water's just at his knees level. He could just take just a sip or something. But how much will a sip do if you've been just draining your hydration for 3 full days? And let me tell you this, Al-Abbas alayhi salam reached water 4 times. So it was only after the 7th that he was not successful in returning it, for several different reasons, each in its own case. One time, for example, he did actually go in and took the water back, but because the orphans were so keen on drinking water, when he put this sachet on the ground so that each would have his sip, they just gathered and flocked, and then the rope was undone and it's opened and spilled. And the narrations also say that the children kept taking the remainder of the sachet and sucking on it or putting it on their chests and their backs and their heads only to cool off. And if several kids would be doing that at the same time, then it would make sense for the sachet to be small. It had to be something big. It had to be something that was hefty in weight also. And also there are other reasons for this, which is that Al-Abbas alayhi salam, when he went into the fight, the final fight before he was going to be martyred, when he did that, the people that were actually trying to attack him were in between palm trees. So present day Euphrates, you could see that the water is growing to its right. I mean, the palm trees and greenery is growing to its right and its left, probably just like 100 meters or so, because it's so hot, and the sand is not really fit to carry any other than palm trees, because they can secure themselves well in the very windy desert. They could tolerate the dips and changes in temperature at night and day. So when he was exiting, actually, and this was the reason why his hands were cut, peace be upon him, and may God, inshallah, accept us as people that love Al-Abbas alayhi salam. So when he is going out, he had to maneuver several palm trees to the right and to the left, and to be quick moving. So any second that is spared in the water, even if no one is in the water with him, no one sharing it, he would actually have to go super fast so that when he is leaving, no one could get in his way and hide behind a palm tree. But they did, and they prepared themselves. And don't think that it was only two people that cut Al-Abbas's hand. They had like the full army. They were so afraid from Al-Abbas and what they saw from his might, that they were hiding behind trees here and there. It just happened per chance and actually per our belief, per destiny, that his killer would be behind, let's say, palm tree X and palm tree Y. So drinking water and just losing focus will mean that we wouldn't be able to see the people that are hiding behind the palm trees. So I'd imagine actually that even when he was jumping into the water, he is looking backwards, not forwards. The horse is going to fill the water on its own. As I explained earlier, the sachet would be just wide open, and then it would be submerged, and then it will be automatically tied when he goes out. So that would be just an easy feat. So looking backwards is actually his best chance. So even lowering the eyesight slightly just to have a sip of water, that would mean imminent danger and could cause him not returning the water back. And what is the most important thing for Al-Abbas alayhi salam? It is to return the water for all the orphans and all the ladies that are awaiting him, so that he would be able to serve them and give them the water that he has promised. Now we enter another question. Why would Al-Abbas promise something that he is not able to deliver? Answer here is very simple and straightforward, really, because he did say that I promise you I'll be getting it if Allah spares my hands, and his hands weren't spared. A second thing is that Al-Abbas alayhi salam had a generalistic promise also to protect the ladies and provide for them as much as possible. So that may have been even from Al-Medina, and it continues to be valid until his martyrdom, or until at least he lost his hands per the narrations, because that was the condition that even Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Ali ibn Abi Talib, gave his daughter Zainab when he was dying, and he was giving them their will, and he was entrusting entrusting her in Al-Abbas's hands. So he said that I entrust you, O Abbas, upon my daughter, and the condition is if your hands are still intact. So this was actually a sign that was always on Zainab's mind. She was always looking at Al-Abbas's hand and kissing them also, and wishing, and not wishing, but rather praying from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep them safe, so the full family will be kept safe, and Hussein will be also kept in safety, because Al-Hussein was martyred only after the martyrdom of Al-Abbas and all of his other family members. So that is the thing, that it was a conditioned promise. Another thing is even when it comes to a full-fledged Islamic promise, like someone saying wallahi, and he's vowing on Allah's name that he will do such a thing, for example. In jurisprudence, we have that, and it's unanimous actually, not only by Shias but also by Sunnis, that when a person performs a vow and a promise with the name of Allah, and then it becomes impossible for him, then directly he is unchained, and this vow falls apart and is invalid. So it doesn't work anymore. He doesn't have to do what he has promised. So even if he promised truly, then he is able, then he would be relieved the moment that the hands would fly off. And so Al-Abbas alayhi salam, when he saw Al-Hussein, looked to his right and his left and was saying, Ala min nasirin yansuruna, أما من ذاب يذب عنا ما لي أناديكم فلا تردون. He was calling on his dead companions and telling them, why do I call upon you and you don't reply? Is there anyone to aid us? Is there anyone to stand with us? So Al-Abbas looked to Al-Hussein's right, and he saw the children just thirsty and crying out of their pain and their misery. So Al-Abbas alayhi salam came to those children and told them that insha'Allah I will be getting you the water. All I need is permission from my brother Hussein. And when Al-Hussein was faced by Al-Abbas, and Al-Abbas was telling him, oh brother, I seek your permission so that I would be able to go and fight and bring the water for your orphans. So Al-Hussein alayhi salam cried loudly and said, oh Abbas, you are the ram of my battalion, and if you go, then I shall go very quickly after you. Do you intend to be the reason why my army falls down? And so we would think, what army, O Hussein? They're all just dead bodies and carcasses on the land of Karbala being baked under the heat. And so Al-Abbas told him, oh brother, I've grown sick of this life, and I would like to go to my ancestors in the great thereafter. So give me my permission. So Al-Hussein's eyes were locked with Al-Abbas, and he embraced him, and he started shaking and crying. And Zainab says, I don't know how much time they spent saying their goodbyes. And then Al-Hussein let Al-Abbas go, and he told him, oh Abbas, go and say your final farewell to our sister Zainab alayha salam, and to the ladies of Hashim, and to the children, oh my brothers and sisters. So when Al-Abbas entered the tent for them and saw them gathered around, he said, I am taking my leave. So Zainab stood up and she ran towards Al-Abbas, embracing him, and soon followed all of the sisters of Abbas and his nephews and all the children, all of them saying, oh, don't leave us, Abbas. But he said, this is what Allah has wanted. And so he embarked on his horse and went towards the river. He kept striking the people in front of him, to the right and to the left. And he was going inside the ranks, while he was saying in poetry, يا نفس لا تخشي من الكفار. And then when he entered into the water and felt the cool of the water under his feet, he then looked at the water and was seeing that it was moving like silver snakes. And then he said, I shall never drink from this water until I reach my grandfather Muhammad sallallahu alayhi, until I reach my father Ali alayhi salam. هذا الماء يجري بطون حيات وذوق قبل كبد حسين هيهات وظن طفلة يا ويل من العطش مات يا ريت الماي بعد لا حلا ومار. And then Al-Abbas exited the water and went into the forest of palm trees. Oh brothers and sisters, and while he was going through, an enemy of Allah was hiding behind the palm tree. So he lifted his sword and he struck Al-Abbas on his right hand. Where are the people that would call wa Abbasa? أين المنادي وسيدا? So he said in poetry, والله إن قطعتم يميني إني أحامي أبدا عن ديني وعن إمام صادق اليقين. And then he continued, trying to hold the sachet of water with his remaining hand and holding the flag so it wouldn't fall, and trying to reach to the sword. And when he was still in the forest, then another enemy of Allah hid behind one of the palms, and he struck Al-Abbas, severing his left. أين المنادي وسيدا؟ أين المنادي ومظلوما؟ And so Al-Abbas also said in his poetry, يا نفس لا تخشي من الكفار قد قطعوا ببغيهم يساري فأصلهم يا رب حر النار. And so Al-Abbas hugged the sachet of water with his hands, keeping the flag in his armpit, and he was moving as fast as he could. So while he was moving, there was an arrow that struck his right eyes. أين المنادي وعباسا؟ أين المنادي وسيدا؟ And then they started flying all these arrows against Al-Abbas until his body was like a hedgehog. And when Al-Abbas looked at the sachet of water, the bag was cut from everywhere with the arrows. And this is when Al-Abbas knew that he wasn't to get to return. So he said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And then Al-Abbas tried to remove this arrow from his eye. So he bent over, lifting his knees on the saddle, so that he'll ledge the arrow and remove it from his eyes, as he has no right nor left. And at that moment, one enemy of Allah came to him with a big iron rod. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم أيها المؤمنون. And he struck Al-Abbas on his head until he fell on the lands of Karbala. أين المنادي وحسيناه وعباساه. And the narrations say, when Al-Abbas fell down, he had no right nor left, and he faced his chest when falling, so all the arrows were ingrained into his skin and muscles. أين المنادي وعباسا وسيدا. And then he said, السلام عليك يا أخي يا أبا عبد الله. And so Al-Hussein started running towards him, and Zainab was exclaiming and crying until he reached him. And so he said, Al-Abbas said, I ask you, whoever you are, by the right of the God that you follow, only give me 1 hour to see my brother Hussein. And so Al-Hussein told him, oh brother, this is me. And then Al-Hussein said, قتل الله من قتلك. May God kill those that killed you, and may God avenge you. ولكن الأمر لله ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. يا الله بالحسين الوجيه وأمه وأخيه والتسعة المعصومين من ذريته وبنيه، اقض حوائجنا، يسر أمورنا، اغفر ذنوبنا، وارحمنا وعافنا واعف عنا. ورحم الله قارئ الفاتحة قبلها صلوات.